As he marks his first year in office, President Lee Jae-myung set out his agenda for year 2, pledging efforts to halt North Korea's nuclear development and channel resources into future growth sectors. South Korea's SK hynix has signed a multi-year technology agreement with Nvidia, deepening cooperation on next-generation memory technologies for AI. Chinese President Xi Jinping has kicked off a 2-day state visit to North Korea, his first in 7 years, in a move seen as reaffirming Beijing's influence in the region and beyond. We begin tonight with President Lee Jae-myung's press conference marking his first year in office. The president pledged to make Korea an irreplaceable nation and outlined a phased approach toward achieving denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula. Our President Office correspondent Yoon Jung-min starts us off.
2026년 올해를 세계 어떤 나라도 대신할 수 없는 대체 불가 대한민국의 담대한 꿈이 시작되는 해로 만들겠습니다.
This was President Lee Jae-myung in a press conference on Monday at the Blue House, looking back on his 1 year in office and laying out what visions he has for the next year. Appearing in a tie representing his resolution from 1 year ago, he vowed to do his utmost in a nearly 3-hour-long press conference. On North Korea, he called for a halt in the regime's production of nuclear materials as a short-term goal and denuclearization as a long-term goal. President Lee assessed that Pyongyang continues making nuclear materials and upgrading its intercontinental ballistic missile capabilities to sustain the regime, even noting the possibility of exporting nuclear materials overseas.
저는 지금 현재 상태로 이 상황을 중단시키는 것만 해도 국제사회나 한반도에 도움이 된다고 생각해요. 그래서 제가 말씀드리는 것은 우리가 비핵화라는 목표를 포기하지 말자.
Acknowledging that the inter-Korean ties have hit lows in recent years, the South Korean commander-in-chief vowed to continue the peace drive. On excess tax revenue generated for a global AI boom, he vowed to use it to seek future growth engines, such as semiconductors, to boost growth.
그래서 초과세수는 저희 생각으로는 가장 중점적으로는 미래 세대를 위한 또 대한민국의 성장 잠재력을 키우는 방향에 투자를 해야 되겠다.
On the issue of distributing corporate windfall profits, which triggered recent wage disputes at Samsung Electronics, the president noted the need for a cautious approach.
해외의 유력한 첨단 기업들이 국내 투자를 꺼리게 되겠죠. 한국에 가면 영업이익률이 높으면 그중에 일부를 떼어서 하라는 사회적 압력이 있어 라고 하게 되면 그런 부담 있는 나라에 투자하는 게 좀 망설여지지 않겠어요?
On curbing real estate speculation, he hinted at readjusting related tax rules in July. The president has been stressing the need for actual outcomes for this next year, as year 2 is deemed crucial within a 5-year South Korean presidential term. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
And President Lee Jae-myung convened a meeting with key figures from Korea's executive, legislative, and judicial branches at the Blue House today, following the ballot shortage during last week's local elections. In his opening remarks, he described the incident as a very serious issue, saying it had failed to fully guarantee citizens a right to vote. According to Senior Presidential Secretary for Public Relations and Communication, Lee Kyu-yeon, the participants agreed on the need for a thorough investigation into the incident and reforms to the country's election administration. The meeting was attended by the National Assembly Speaker, the Chief Justice, the Constitutional Court President, and the Prime Minister. In other news, SK hynix has teamed up with Nvidia in a multi-year collaboration aimed at advancing cutting-edge memory solutions for AI factories. Our Kim Do-yeon tells us what this means.
A multi-year alliance between Nvidia and SK Group aims to build Asia's largest AI infrastructure. On Monday, Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang announced this agreement during his visit to SK hynix and added Korea is the ideal launchpad for physical AI.
The age of physical AI has finally arrived. and no country is better prepared for robotics than Korea. Incredible wealth of AI researchers, of course, the local expertise and the leadership of heavy industries and manufacturing here in Korea. The combination of these two capabilities makes Korea the ideal country to take advantage of artificial intelligence's next wave called physical AI and robotics.
At the center of this strategy is a 4-pillar expansion to secure a global supply chain for tech partners like Microsoft. First, the alliance guarantees a stable memory supply aligned with Nvidia's roadmap. Second, they will co-develop next-generation memory for robotics. Third, they will deploy Nvidia software to accelerate chip simulations. Fourth, they will construct digital twin factories to automate manufacturing. Under this framework, SK Telecom will launch a gigawatt-class AI factory next year to become Asia's largest AI cloud provider. SK hynix will supply specialized memory for Nvidia's upcoming Vera Rubin supercomputers, Vera CPUs, Jensen Thor robotics, and RTX Spark PCs. SK Group says the deal shifts their relationship from a supply contractor to an alliance.
We are now elevating our partnership to a broader collaboration between SK Group and Nvidia. There are two main points. First, we will build future AI factories together. Second, we will share the joint R&D roadmaps we are developing with Nvidia.
By synchronizing R&D roadmaps, SK Group integrates directly into Nvidia's expanding hardware ecosystem, cementing its position at the top of the Asian supply chain. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
In the meantime, Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang's every move here in Korea has drawn widespread attention as he meets with business leaders and connects with the public in his trademark down-to-earth style. Our Park Jun-han has more.
Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang's trip to Korea is coming to a close, but during his visit, he has met with several AI industry leaders and taken part in a series of public-friendly events.
After arriving in Korea, Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang's first stop wasn't a major tech exhibition or a closed-door meeting with corporate leaders. Instead, he went to a PC Bang, the local name for an internet cafe.
For Nvidia, Korean PC Bangs hold a special meaning. Huang has already said that Korea's esports culture and PC Bangs played a foundational role in Nvidia's early growth, both at an event with T1's Faker last Friday and during the APEC Summit last November.
Nvidia, GeForce, and Korea esports grew up together. So I loved you for a long time. Thank you.
If his last visit was famous for fried chicken and beer, this trip was packed with an even wider array of grassroots marketing. On Friday evening, he enjoyed samgyeopsal, or Korean pork belly, and somek, a mix of soju and beer, with the heads of SK LG and Neighbor's founder. On Saturday, he filmed an episode for a popular Korean talk show, Quiz on the Block. On Sunday, he threw the ceremonial first pitch at a Doosan Bears baseball game alongside the Doosan Group's chairman, before heading back to his favorite fried chicken spot, Ganbu Chicken, that evening. But these moves were more than just friendly PR, with the Nvidia CEO also laying out concrete business commitments with Korean tech leaders. Huang announced that he had brought 4 gifts aimed at creating new business opportunities in Korea, including plans to establish a new Nvidia research center.
I brought 4 new businesses to Korea. Vera Rubin, Vera, RTX Spark, and our Jensen Thor.
With Jensen Huang promising to return to Korea more frequently, investors are eyeing what this strategic friendship will yield next. Park Jun-han, Arirang News.
And meanwhile, growing concerns that the memory chip supercycle may be nearing its peak sparked a sharp sell-off on Monday, sending South Korean stocks and the won sharply lower during trading. Kim Jun-hong reports.
Panic selling swept through Korea's financial markets on Monday, dragging stocks lower and pushing the Korean won to a 17-year low. The benchmark KOSPI closed at 7,484.41, down 8.29% from the previous session. Just 3 minutes into trading, the KOSPI triggered a circuit breaker after falling more than 8%. Trading was halted for 20 minutes, with the index at around the 7,470 mark when the curb took effect. The secondary KOSDAQ also closed down over 9% after triggering a sell-side sidecar and later a circuit breaker during the session. Monday's sell-off came after a major global investment bank warned last week that the memory chip cycle could peak sooner than expected. The report triggered a sharp decline in U.S. semiconductor stocks, spilling over into Korean markets. Pressure also persisted in the currency market, with the $1 exchange rate closing the regular session at 1,535 won to the dollar. Earlier in the day, the exchange rate opened at 1,552.2 won, up more than 16 won from the previous session. This marked the highest opening level since the global financial crisis in 2009. Korea's energy import dependence has long left the won vulnerable to external shocks, while continued foreign selling of Korean stocks has further weighed on the currency. Renewed expectations of further Fed rate hikes also lent support to the dollar on Monday.
Markets are scaling back expectations for Federal Reserve rate cuts after U.S. employment data for May and the previous 2 months were revised upward. That has supported the dollar and weighed further on the Korean won.
Also on Monday, the Bank of Korea and the Ministry of Finance and Economy warned they would not tolerate excessive volatility or disorderly market moves that stray from underlying fundamentals. They added that speculative trading appears to have amplified recent exchange rate swings. Kim Jun-ho, Arirang News.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has kicked off a rare 2-day state visit to North Korea, which is his first trip to Pyongyang in 7 years, amid growing regional attention over Beijing's ties with the North. Our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Seung looks at the significance behind the closely watched visit.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has called for closer diplomatic and military ties with North Korea in a summit with regime leader Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang. According to Beijing's state media People's Daily, Xi and Kim began their sit-down meeting on Monday evening at the Kumsusan State Guest House at around 6 p.m. Korea time. During the meeting, Xi was reported to have said that China and North Korea should strengthen exchanges and cooperation in areas including diplomacy, law enforcement, and the military. This marks the Chinese leader's first trip to North Korea in 7 years. Ahead of the visit, Xi contributed to a front-page article in North Korea's ruling party newspaper, the Rodong Sinmun, to call for closer strategic coordination between Beijing and Pyongyang, deeming their friendship unbreakable. He said they should jointly promote a multipolar world and inclusive economic globalization, while defending the international system centered on the United Nations.
From China's perspective, rather than specific agenda items, the visit comes after the U.S.-China summit and the China-Russia summit. So China wants to send an external message that it is leading the East Asian Security Order, or even the broader global diplomatic and security order. For Beijing, there is actually not much to ask of Pyongyang.
However, from North Korea's perspective, it still needs China's political and economic support.
North Korea's biggest concern is how to secure Chinese support once the Russia-Ukraine war eventually comes to an end. One example is the Wonsan Karma Resort project, which Kim Jong-un has personally prioritized. For that project to succeed, North Korea needs large numbers of Chinese tourists.
But the biggest question is, how far is China willing to engage North Korea on nuclear issues?
China has absolutely no reason to aggressively push a denuclearization agenda. Seoul appears to be hoping that China can play a mediating role and help revive North Korea-US dialogue and even inter-Korean dialogue. We place a lot of expectations on mediation, but I do not think China is willing at this point to bear that burden.
On Sunday, the North Korean leader's powerful sister Kim Yo-jong said Pyongyang's status as a nuclear weapon state was an irreversible reality and that no outside pressure would change that fact. The Unification Ministry said Monday that it will not make assumptions at this point about whether Kim and Xi may take steps to recognize the North as a nuclear state. The ministry said it will closely watch the outcome of the talks as they unfold. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
North Korea is estimated to possess around 60 nuclear warheads as of January 2026, 10 more than last year, according to the Swiss think tank, the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute on Monday. And the institute explained that North Korea may have produced enough fissile material to manufacture up to 90 nuclear warheads. However, the actual number of assembled warheads is believed to be lower, likely around 60 at most. Now, as for China, the report said, Beijing possessed around 620 nuclear warheads as of January this year, which is an increase of 20 from the previous year. It also noted that China expanded its operational nuclear development, with the number of warheads deployed rising from 24 last year to 34 this year. The fragile ceasefire in the Middle East is facing renewed pressure as the tensions between Iran and Israel continue to rise. U.S. President Donald Trump called for an immediate halt of mutual attacks, while Iran said the U.S. is responsible for the recent Israeli attacks. Our Park Go-nu has more.
U.S. President Donald Trump said in a social media post on Monday that Israel and Iran must stop shooting immediately, as Israel and Iran have been trading fire on Sunday and into Monday. Iran warned Monday that the U.S. would bear responsibility for any escalation in the Middle East caused by Israel. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai said during a press briefing that recent developments had cast a shadow over ongoing negotiations with Washington.
These developments in the past 24 hours will certainly intensify suspicions. Even now, we have been exchanging messages with the American side in an atmosphere of extremely deep mistrust. Without any doubt, as I have said, it is impossible to separate the actions of the Zionist regime in the region from U.S. policies.
This comes as the Israeli Defense Forces said it has completed a large-scale strike targeting strategic defense systems in Iran. IDF said dozens of fighter jets took part dismantling key defense capabilities and expanding Israel's operational freedom in Iranian airspace. The Israeli military said the fighting could continue for several more days and that it remains prepared for a prolonged campaign. It added that Iran fired around 30 ballistic missiles toward Israel overnight, all of which were either intercepted or fell in open areas. According to Iranian news agency Mehr, Iranian air defenses have also downed a drone that was flying over Tehran. Yemen's Houthi rebels also launched attacks toward Israel and warned they would target Israel-linked vessels in the Red Sea, raising concerns of a wider regional conflict. With hostilities continuing across the region, attention's now on whether the conflict will escalate further or whether it could ease through diplomatic efforts. Park Go-nu, Arirang News.
Still, a key obstacle in U.S.-Iran ceasefire talks remains Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium. President Donald Trump says Washington intends to secure and eliminate it with or without a deal. Lee Seung-jae reports.
President Donald Trump says the United States is close to reaching a deal with Iran to end the 3-month conflict between the two countries, but insists any agreement must permanently prevent Tehran from obtaining nuclear weapons. In an interview with NBC's Meet the Press, Trump said that if a deal is reached, the U.S. would work alongside Iran to retrieve and destroy its stockpile of highly enriched uranium. He said the material could either be destroyed on site or removed and disposed of elsewhere under American supervision. However, Trump warned that if negotiations fail, Washington would take further military action against Iran and continue degrading its military capabilities before moving to secure the uranium independently. He stressed that the U.S. would ensure the operation could be carried out safely with or without Iranian cooperation. Trump also highlighted America's surveillance capabilities, saying U.S. Space Force assets can closely monitor Iran's nuclear facilities using advanced space-based technology. The president described the two sides as very close to an agreement, but said he is seeking tougher language in the proposed deal. According to Trump, Iran has already agreed not to develop nuclear weapons, But he wants additional provisions barring Tehran from purchasing, acquiring, or otherwise obtaining nuclear weapons from outside sources. Trump said Iranian negotiators initially resisted the demand, but eventually softened their opposition. He also offered a rare assessment of Iran's new leadership following the deaths of former Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and several senior officials during the conflict. Trump described the new leadership as more rational and pragmatic and said Khamenei's son, Mojtaba Khamenei, is involved in the approval process for any agreement. Trump added that he remains open to direct talks with Iran's new supreme leader as negotiations continue. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The World Cup gets underway this week. For more on Korea's preparations, chances, and expectations, we have our sports editor Paul Neat in the studio with us. Hello, Paul.
Hello there.
So, Paul, the World Cup begins this week. Korea's preparations must be more or less complete, right?
Right, yes. They arrived at their base camp in Mexico on Saturday. They touched down in Guadalajara, and at around 4 p.m. local time, were greeted by fans and locals who'd gathered outside the hotel where the team is staying. But it was strictly business, as none of the players stopped for autographs when they got off the bus. The arrival there means that Korea will have 6 days at their base camp ahead of the first game. But their preparations began on May 18th, arriving in the US for a pre-camp of sorts. They face Czechia on Thursday at 7 p.m. local time in Guadalajara, or 11 a.m. Friday Korea time. It'll be the first time the two countries have met in a competitive game. The last meeting goes back to 2016 with Korea winning 2-1. They'll wear their red home kit for this one.
So their first game in a decade.
Yeah.
And the team spent a long time in the U.S. before moving to Mexico. They had 2 friendlies there.
Yeah.
What do those matches tell us about what sort of lineup we might see this Friday?
Right, well, it looks like we will see that back 3 system. This was a setup used in both friendly games. Head coach Hong Myung-bo used a 4-2-3-1 for much of the qualification phase, but sees an extra centre-back with wing-backs as the way to go for the World Cup finals against stronger opposition. Now, in terms of personnel, looking at who played in the 2 friendly matches, the surprise inclusion Lee Gi-hyuk looks to be set to start at left centre-back alongside Kim Min-jae and Lee Han-bom. Jens Kastrup may get the nod at left wing-back with captain Son Heung-min as a central striker. Now, while the formation was a focus in the US, the team spent 3 weeks in Salt Lake City, Utah to adjust to the altitude, as it is similar to Guadalajara. Management saw this as a priority rather than facing top-class opponents.
I see. Then, Paul, what are the expectations? I mean, how far can Korea go this time?
Well, the head coach says that the main target is just to get to the round of 32. This is the expanded World Cup, of course, with 48 teams. But then they'll sort of get to the round of 32 and then take it from there. That's the first knockout round. But the data company Opta has given Korea a 70% chance of reaching the round of 32 and 33% chance of reaching the round of 16, but just 12% of reaching the quarters. The top 2 go through in each group, and the best placed teams that finish third will also go through. Korea have only reached the first knockout stage 3 times and just twice on foreign soil. But fans seem optimistic, at least looking at the number of people who said they'll be tuning in.
Right.
A survey by the Korea Broadcast Advertising Corporation found that 68.6% said they would be watching the matches live, despite the game starting at 11 a.m. and 10 a.m.
I'll be one of the 68.6% people, Paul.
Me too.
Now, I understand there are some rule changes this year. Tell us more.
Yeah, quite a few, mainly aimed at speeding the game up. For instance, players will have just 5 seconds to take a throw-in or a goal kick and 10 seconds to get off the pitch when being subbed off. Also, if a goalkeeper goes down injured, players are not allowed to go over to the touchline to see the coach for instructions. Players are also banned from putting their hands, arms or shirts over their mouths to remove the chance of anything untoward being said towards another player. Also, VAR will have an expanded scope. It can look at corners, attacking fouls, and can overrule a second yellow card if the referee has made an error. There's also a hydration break for 3 minutes in the middle of each half.
Well, lots to look forward to. Let's hope Korea begin with the win. Thanks for that, Paul.
Thank you. Yep.
Rain that began this morning in the eastern parts of the country will taper off by this evening. For the next several days, Korea will remain under the influence of cooler, drier air moving down from the north, so temperatures are not expected to rise significantly. As we move through the week, atmospheric instability will increase as cooler air from the north interacts with warmer air to the south, bringing a higher chance of showers on several days. So if you're heading outside, keep a small umbrella handy. Tomorrow, Seoul will start the day at 16 degrees Celsius, Chuncheon at 13 degrees, Gwangju at 15 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 28 degrees, Daegu at 30 degrees, Busan at 25 degrees. Skies will clear nationwide starting tomorrow, but as atmospheric conditions become more unstable, showers will occur frequently in many regions. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
That's all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.